Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the 3 Now podcast. It is now episode 19. I just sound like Mark again. I can't speak English. I was trying to say I sound like Markiplier, but I messed up the intro per usual. It's just a Brett thing these days. That's why Ben was hosting for like 5 weeks because I suck at it.
Wow.
Anyway, Brett Jobs, Ben Pope, Mike Cicchetti. Everybody knows the spiel. We are now on to our NFL awards. We've done preseason awards, midseason awards. We are now on to our official final NFL awards. This is a big episode. For those of you who are not familiar with our format, we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 categories to go through. MVP, Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Defensive Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, Most Surprising Team, Most Disappointing Team, Most Improved Player, and Most Improved Team. Those are all of our categories. We're going to be diving deep into each one, but we had our previous episode, episode 18, that most recently aired. If you haven't checked it out yet, be sure to go check it out on all of our social media platforms and services, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get it. Talked about Super Wildcard Weekend. We'll have a recap episode ASAP when the playoffs air. But let's jump into these awards, beginning with Offensive Player of the Year. We're going to save MVP for last. We're going to go starting with Offensive Player of the Year. Guys, this is one where we've had a little bit of discussion over the last couple of times we've done awards. I think it's pretty solidified now who our player is. Mike, you seem pretty getting ready to get started. Who's your Offensive Player of the Year?
My offensive player of the year is Justin Jefferson. Now Justin Jefferson was my preseason pick, but we're not going to talk about. He was all our preseason picks. Ben mentioned led the league in yards. Unfortunately, was not able to break Megatron's record. Unfortunately, because he got clamped up by Jair. Jair happened, and Justin Jefferson's record did not happen. 8 touchdowns, and he led the league in yards after the catch among receivers. Incredible year. He was the heartbeat of the Vikings offense, and he was the guy that basically, he's basically the face of the Vikings at this point. Tremendous season. He had a slow, not really a slow start, but there were some guys that you could have mentioned as well. Josh Jacobs, Saquon had a really strong start. Tyreek Hill had an even stronger start. Tyreek Hill was on pace to break over 2,000. But consistency, Justin Jefferson is my offensive player of the year.
Ben?
Yep. I also had Justin Jefferson going into the preseason. I'm going to stick with that. Justin Jefferson is my offensive player of the year. I had a prediction going back last year that at this time, when we were talking about awards, that he would be the best receiver in the league. And I honestly think that he has come pretty close to achieving that, if not achieving that. I think that guys like Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, I know he got injured, but he's still up there. And Tyreek Hill deserved to be in that conversation. But I think that Justin Jefferson is at that top of the conversation. He had an immaculate year, like Mike mentioned. And another point, it was really the heart and soul of that entire Vikings offense. A lot of other people that were in contention for this award, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, kind of conflicting with one another a little bit on the Raiders together. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, another example of that. But Justin Jefferson did lead the league in receiving yards. Didn't have as many receiving touchdowns or as many scrimmage yard touchdowns as guys like Josh Jacobs or even Austin Eckler. But Justin Jefferson, at the end of the day, pretty solidly deserves this award.
Yeah. And shout out Devontae Adams too, because he had a very, very underrated year.
Yeah.
1,500 yards. I think he led the league in receiving touchdowns as well. He was up there, but very quietly. You didn't hear much talk about him, but great year by Tay Adams as well.
Goes to show if you're on a team that is not as successful, your season's not going to get as hyped up. So shout out Devontae Adams, but I'm going for the clean sweep. Justin Jefferson's my guy as well, just for the reasons that you guys explained as a whole. Really, the the heart and soul of that Vikings offense and quite literally cemented himself this year as the best receiver in football right now between him, Adams, and Cup. I'm picking Jefferson here. It's a clean sweep by all of us. Pretty assertive pick at that point, so we'll move on. We now go to Defensive Player of the Year. This has been one that has changed a lot in the last couple of times we've done awards. I think at this point, this one's also pretty solid. We'll start with Ben on this one. He's had his pick adamant since the get-go. Who's your Defensive Player of the Year?
Yep, he was my preseason pick. He was my midseason pick. I'm going to stay with Nick Bosa of the San Francisco 49ers, leading the league in sacks at 18 and a half. He has been the unstoppable force on that San Francisco defense. He has been unbelievable. Kind of talked about him and like Myles Garrett kind of being in the conversation of they're always taken to the dance, but they're never really that like true number one star. And we kind of saw that this year from Nick Bosa. I think that it was probably a two-man competition between him and Micah Parsons, but at the end of the day, I think that Nick Bosa, just with his counting stats and his importance to a really talented San Francisco team, I think that he kind of takes the edge.
Mike?
I'm right there with you. I also have Nick Bosa. I want to take the time to shout out someone else who I had. He might be my number 2 at this point, Hassan Reddick. He let me just get numbers because I got numbers here. Where is he? Oh, tied for second in sacks at 16, 11 tackles for loss, and 5 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries. Amazing signing by Philadelphia to acquire Hassan Reddick, and to be able to get stats like that and basically be their best pass rusher on a team that didn't really need that help is pretty remarkable, in my opinion. And that just goes to show how good of a player Hassan Reddick can be, because he had a kind of a disappointing start to his career in Arizona, and he never really got off the ground per se. Besides his last year in Arizona, then he went to Carolina, signed the 1-year deal. Philly signed him, and it paid off tremendously. So shout out Hassan Reddick as well.
Yeah, shout out Hassan, but this is going to be another clean sweep again. Nick Bosa is my pick. I've had Matt Judon. I believe I had TJ Watt as well in the preseason. But I'm picking Nick Bosa here. I just think he's asserted himself as that number 1 guy. Compared to the other pass rushers, we've talked about Hassan Reddick, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons. Nick Bosa's just kind of been there, and he's just been the most consistent all year round. And I feel like it's a pretty safe pick here. So all 3 of us have Nick Bosa. All 3 of us have Justin Jefferson. So 2 for 2 on the board as far as clean sweeps. Now here's where things may differ. Offensive Rookie of the Year. There have been, honestly, let's start with this. Offensive Rookie of the Year has been a very quiet award, especially this year. There haven't been many standout offensive rookies this past year. There have been guys that have been extremely solid, but none that have really taken that superstar leap as of yet. This is where it's going to get tricky. I will start this one off. I actually have Garrett Wilson as my offensive rookie of the year, and I thought it was going to be a few other guys. I've had Brock Purdy in my conversation, Chris Olave. Chris Olave was second for me. I have Garrett Wilson as mine. Over 1,100 yards. He had only 4 TDs in this season, but he averaged over 13 yards a grab. The reason why I'm picking Garrett Wilson in this instance is just because of how successful he's been with the very poor quarterback play that the Jets have produced this year. Goes to show how much he's been able to really elevate his play and sort of assert himself as really the true one in this Jets offense. I think he's going to be their true one going forward, especially with the push that guys like Elijah Moore have had in this offense. But yeah, I'm going with Garrett Wilson as my offensive rookie of the year.
You're forgetting about someone, though, out of the guys you mentioned.
I'm sure I am. There were a ton of solid guys this year.
I'm right there with you. I have Garrett Wilson, however, but Benny,
Who was the guy? You're not going to say it?
I want to wait for Benny's pick.
Are you
Fair enough.
talking about Brees Hall?
Mm-mm.
Damian Pierce,
No.
Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
This was going to be a Jets award pretty much throughout. It was Brees Hall's until he tore his
Yep.
ACL. It now transfers to the other Jet, and that would be Garrett Wilson. I think Chris Olave honestly had a good chance of winning this award as well, but him missing a couple games due to concussion really pushed him back. Honestly, his per game basis numbers were probably better than Garrett Wilson's, but Garrett Wilson was able to play the full 17, had the better numbers at the end of the day, better counting numbers at least. So I will give it to Wilson. I think that he is kind of being underrated in this season that he was able to have just because of the past couple years with the rookie seasons that Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase were able to put up. 1,100 yards as a rookie is unbelievable for a receiver. So want to give him the credit that he deserves, especially with, like mentioned, the rotating amount of dunderheads that he had at quarterback, whether it was Zach Wilson throwing to Garrett Wilson, whether it was Joe Flacco or Mike White. So
Or
gonna give it
Chris
to Garrett.
Streveler. Don't forget Streveler.
Oh,
Matthew
Yeah,
God.
it was like for one quarter. So
Anyway, wow. A surprise sweep again. We are now 3 for 3 on sweeps. I thought there was going to be a little bit of different opinions there, but we move on. Defensive Rookie of the Year now. This also seems like a
Same deal.
I think it's the same deal. Mike, you seem pretty confident in your pick.
It's Sauce Gardner.
I think we all getting lost in the sauce.
yeah, pretty much.
I've been lost in the sauce. Led the 45 passer rating allowed, 20 passes defended. Both of those led the NFL. He averaged giving up 10.4 yards per catch on, I believe, only 33 receptions on the year. Incredible season for a rookie, and people are saying he's the number one corner in the league. Which is
between
high.
him and Surtain at this point.
Yeah, which is high praise for him to come into the league, be that number one right off the bat, and play how he's played. Aiden Hutchinson made it close because Aiden Hutchinson really started slow, but came back and almost, I believe, 9.5 sacks. He had 3 picks, and he's just once the Lions defense got going, the last 8-9 games, he started picking it up. Not enough though. I think there would have been a really, really good fight between this award if Hutchinson was more consistent with that award and got off to a hot start. But it's Sauce's award.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Tariq Woolen too, because he surprisingly only with 6 picks tied for the league lead with a few guys. I know Minka Fitzpatrick, Justin Simmons, and I believe it was CJ Gardner-Johnson, which was a bit of a surprise there. But that was actually the league lead this year was 6 picks. So shout out to Tariq Woolen there. But yeah, it was pretty much Sauce Gardner's to lose. He started out unbelievably, kept that play up pretty much throughout the season. So it's tough to go anywhere else but Sauce.
Yeah, I got Sauce as well for the reasons we've said. So we are 4 for 4 on picking unanimously here on the 3 and Out Award Show. Just to recap, if you're just tuning in now, Offensive Player of the Year, Justin Jefferson. Defensive Player of the Year, Nick Bosa. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Garrett Wilson. And Defensive Rookie of the Year is Sauce Gardner. So we move on. Comeback Player of the Year is our next award. There are 2 guys, theoretically, that could be up for this award. I'm going to start it off. I have Christian McCaffrey as my Comeback Player of the Year in this case. I think a lot of people can also make a strong case for Geno Smith in this instance. But when I look at the Comeback Player of the Year award, we talked about this in midseason awards. This is really someone that goes down to either personal reasons or really bad injury earlier on in the previous season, comes back, plays exceptionally. I think CMC's done just that. He's really come back to true form with San Francisco, especially with the way that Kyle Shanahan's been able to use him in that offense. I'm a big fan of the way CMC's played, especially closing out the year and going into the postseason. So I have CMC as my offensive player of the, or comeback player of the year, I should say. Excuse me.
Yeah, it was really nice to see the best skill position player, at least in my eyes, in the league to really reclaim his true form. And that's Christian McCaffrey for me. It was honestly a race between him and Saquon Barkley for me. And I think Mike kind of agrees with this. Geno Smith, I don't know like where the comeback was from. I guess it's like coming back from just losing his job, apparently. But I think it's just him having an unbelievable like turnaround from where he was. Saquon and CMC were the two true comebacks for me. And even though that Saquon did have a real reclamation of what he was able to do the previous 2 years, he did play 13 games in 2021. So
That's
it's
the thing. That's why.
how much of a true comeback
Right.
is that?
Right.
Um, whereas CMC played the full 17. He looked unbelievable, did not miss a beat transitioning from Carolina to San Francisco. Honestly, kind of got that old juice back when he was able to go over to San Francisco, and he's looked really good. He's kind of reclaiming that former glory that he had. So I'm really glad to see that. So I have Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, it's another sweep. I also have Christian McCaffrey, 1,880 yards, total yards, I should say, between rushing and receiving. Played 11 games with San Francisco, had over 1,000 combined scrimmage yards, over 1,000 total scrimmage yards, and 10 touchdowns. So he's been a very, very nice addition for Brock Purdy in that offense, and Jimmy G for half of it technically. Yeah, Geno Smith didn't come back from anything besides being a bum on the bench. But shout out Geno, because he's been great. But it's McCaffrey. It's only McCaffrey, and it was always McCaffrey.
So hurtful. So hurtful.
It's true.
Oh, anyway, we've gone for a sweep again. Christian McCaffrey is our comeback player of the year officially. Lock it down for our 3 and Out season awards. We now move to coach of the year. This is an interesting one.
Yeah.
To preface this award, us three actually got into a pretty heated argument the other day about who deserves this award more. Oh, this is so tough. I'm going to let Ben start this one off because he was so adamant in our previous discussion. I'll let him take it away on this one.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Nick Sirianni as my coach of the year. No shock there. Took a fringe playoff team in the Philadelphia Eagles, 9-8, with a second-year quarterback to a 14-3 record, the best, the number one seed in the NFC, the best team in the NFC. And even though that they've dealt with some injuries late in the season, I'm not going to fault Nick Sirianni on that too much. He's coached his team unbelievably well, gotten them to a really good point. You've got to give some credit to the GM and the front office on the job that they've been able to do, but the transformation for the Eagles and Nick Sirianni, I've got to give credit there. The conversation that Brett was alluding to was when the Steelers had a chance to make the playoffs, he was like, oh, Mike Tomlin should be the coach of the year. No, they've been garbage all year. Just because they have a chance to make the playoffs, he's not in it.
All we were saying was that
Over Pete Carroll, who we all, I know Mike and I definitely had this. We had Seattle as the worst team coming into the preseason. Brett was like probably like four wins.
For context, the argument was who would we give the award to between the two? Tomlin or
obviously
Carroll?
be Pete Carroll now because who made the playoffs? But my real winner is Nick Sirianni.
Brett, your real winner?
My real winner is also Sirianni. I mean, it's pretty hard to argue from taking the Eagles borderline making the playoffs to absolutely decimating the NFC. Pretty clear at that point, especially considering the fact that, let's not forget 2 years ago that the Eagles were pretty much considering Sirianni as like a one and done filler head coach. Like nobody thought Sirianni was going to last the first season, let alone make the playoffs and have a winning record. So pretty impressive for what he's done. So I have Sirianni as my coach of the year.
I have someone different. It's about time.
Dable?
I have Shanahan.
Wow.
I have Kyle Shanahan to be able to go through 3 quarterbacks. He had Trey Lance for 2 weeks, and then Jimmy G came in. was playing great, and then Jimmy G went down with an injury. No surprise there because that happens. Seems like every year. And then Brock Purdy came in and um, really didn't miss a beat once he came in, took over for Jimmy G seamlessly. Um, they have the longest active win streak in the NFL with 10 wins. They started the year 3-4, and they ended 10-0, which is incredible. Purdy playing 6 of those games, 6.5, I want to say, because he came in the Miami game. Just being able to go through those 3 quarterbacks, and especially Purdy being the last pick in the draft and not really knowing what you have. I know there were talks of him just in camp and stuff, how he looked solid. But just that's, you can have a good day at camp and people will say that. But he's come in and he's been great for them. So that's why my vote's going to Kyle Shanahan.
All right, so the first one where we defer on, 2 for Sirianni and 1 for Kyle Shanahan, both very respectable
And
head
none
coaches, of
for
course.
Mike Tomlin. And we'll move on.
Thank you, Ben. Anyways, we now move on to our next award, which is the most surprising team. Few teams surprised us this year in good ways. I'll start off this one. I have Seattle as my most surprising team. You could also make arguments for Detroit and Philadelphia in their respective cases, but for Seattle to go from projected worst team in the league to now making the playoffs, it's pretty damn impressive if you ask me. And I don't think anybody saw what they've done this year happening. So I'm going with Seattle.
Michael?
Yeah, right there with you. Right there with you. I had Seattle, if I combined it, having 4 wins. And they went 9-8, made the playoffs. And this was kind of the perfect scenario for Seattle this year. Geno Smith played. Nobody expected Geno Smith to play this well. He came in, lit it up for Seattle's offense. Better than Russell Wilson did. Shout out, what's his face, Geno Smith, for breaking the record. All right, Geno. And then defensively, they had a great draft as well. Amazing draft class. All those players: Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant, the 2 tackles that are both starting, Ken Walker. Amazing draft class. They're all contributors to this team. I had them. I basically give this award to who I look at my preseason predictions and who overexceeded. I had them at 4 wins, like I said, 9 wins. Pretty incredible stuff right there. Shout out Pete Carroll, shout out Geno, shout out Tariq, shout out Jordan Brooks, shout out the Seahawks.
I have
Ben?
Seattle too, but Mike already gave all the shout outs, so.
All right, so way to ruin Ben's spotlight, Mike. We sweep with
That was a
Seattle.
little harsh.
I'm being harsh. I'm a little more assertive today.
I'm going to shout out the Falcons kind of too, because they kind of exceeded my expectations as well.
They were exceeding my expectations, then they weren't.
Well,
So
because
you know
Marcus Mariota wasn't playing anymore. His favorite
you know
quarterback.
who
by the way.
started like that?
Mariota.
Chicago. Wasn't Chicago at one point like 3-2 or something?
Yeah.
They started off 2-1, and then they went 1-14.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe it was something like that. 2-1. Yeah, because I had them at I had Chicago at 3 wins, 3-14, and when they were 2-1, I'm sitting there going, "Oh God, it's gonna be bad."
No, you were exactly right.
Who's
Yep.
a fool now?
All right, so we
Show
sweep
me.
we sweep with the Seattle Seahawks as our most surprising team. We move on. Most disappointing team. Oh boy. Broncos country. Let's ride and die in this category. Pretty much gives away mine. Denver. We know why. Hackett sucks. Russ sucked. Everybody sucked. Boo hoo. Yeah, I know. This season sucked. Hey, they finished strong. Take it away, Ben.
All right, so I'm gonna not be like Brett and think of like not a team that he's obsessed with. The Rams were the Super Bowl champs, and then they went 5-12. That's the most disappointing team. I understand that Matthew Stafford was hurt. I understand that they lost a decent amount of pieces on their O-line, but no excuse for the amount of drop-off that this team had. Looked really bad when Stafford was playing. Looked even worse when he wasn't playing. So with that, easy pick for me. I think it's the Rams.
I'll go someone different too. The Bucks.
The playoffs.
Performance-wise on the field, if you can win that division 8-9, I mean, you know what I'm saying? They wouldn't make the playoffs if they weren't in the garbage division.
Well, if we're saying the Bucks, then I'm saying the Chargers.
Okay, look at your notes. What was your preseason prediction for the Chargers? Right now.
I had them
Like 10 or 11 wins, right? Oh, so you were wrong on them. They were better.
I was very wrong on them.
So how they disappoint you?
Because I thought...
No, you didn't. You just said you had them in last place.
I think... I'm not going to lie. I actually think I had them at 9-8.
They didn't finish 9-8.
You look. Now I've had them at 9-8 in the preseason. I think what did they finish? 11-5, 10-6,
11-6,
11-6.
Yeah, so they weren't just
no,
as bad.
10-7. They were 10-7. They were 10-7. I just wanted to go against the grain. I think it's Denver, honestly.
It's between Denver and LA. I think we can consensusly.
I give LA I mean, Ben's right. You can't dismiss the fact that they've dropped off like this. But they just lost so much and injury-wise too. Whereas Denver was kind of this is the tough thing. But
So I want to say this. I want to say this, Mike, just quick.
Yep.
Did anyone think the Rams would miss the playoffs this year? I don't think so. Did people have hesitations about the Broncos? Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't, but other people did.
That's a good point.
That's a very good point.
Go long, Bredethin.
Broncos country, let's die.
2 for Denver, 1 for the Rams, Broncos, Bucks, whatever. Anyways, most improved player. A lot of players improved this season. I'll start with Mike on this one. Mike, who's your most improved player?
Oh, it's not even close. It's Geno Smith. Geno Smith was first in completion percentage. He was fourth in again, me getting my numbers here. First in completion percentage, 8th in passing yards, 4th in touchdown passes, 6th in QBR, top 10 in basically all the simple counting stats and even on the field. Play was great, made the playoffs with that team. Kind of slipped off a little bit, but that was due to the competition they were playing. Geno Smith, easily, in my opinion, the most improved player of the year.
I also have Geno Smith, but I just want to give shout out. One, preseason pick was Tua. If not for concussions, he probably would have been my pick still, just to keep with continuity. And also Josh Jacobs. He went from like a fringe starting running back to the league leader in rushing yards. So got to give him some love there. He was probably second or third for offensive player of the year. But Geno Smith led the league in completion percentage, has looked really great this entire season. Arguably has put up a top 8 quarterback season, like at least from the 2022-2023 stats. So he's been really good. He's a Pro Bowler, I believe. So really good for him. Hopefully he doesn't make it to the Super Bowl so we can see Geno play flag football. So dumb.
I'm actually going against the grain on this one. I don't have Geno. I love Geno.
No, you hate him. Because he's making Russ look like a scrub. Go ahead.
You know I can't disrespect my second favorite team like that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
They're your third favorite team.
Here's Greg
Third
Dulcich
favorite
as most
team.
improved.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Glad we're on the same page. My most improved player is Trevor Lawrence. If you look at his stats from last year, he is tremendously improved. He was tied for the league lead in interceptions last year with 17, threw for a little over 3,500 yards, 12 touchdowns. This year, completely different story. 25-8 touchdown interception ratio, so much better. Threw for almost 70% of his passes and over 4,000 yards. I had him predicted to be on pace for 4,000 yards, but he actually threw for over, which I was pretty impressed with, especially considering how questionable the Jaguars were going to be at the beginning of the year. And Trevor Lawrence went out of nowhere and impressed a lot of people. So
Out of
I'm
nowhere.
with the run that he had between week 9 and week 15, I don't think anybody expected him to do that. I didn't
I feel
expect
like
him
it
to
was
do
only a
that.
matter of time.
It was a matter of time, but considering the pace the Jaguars were at that point, I don't think people expected Trevor Lawrence to have that big of a jump. At least I didn't. I thought he was going to stay consistent and maybe have a little bit of a better year than he did last year, but he succeeded his numbers by a good chunk. So I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here. I give him my most improved player. Again, Geno Smith, probably more deserving of this award considering of how insane of a year he had. So shout out Geno.
Hold
You
on.
hate him,
Shout out
so
to
it's okay.
Before you move on, I'm going to read you Geno Smith's stats from last season.
there weren't any.
There was he started 3 games. He went
Oh,
1 and
that's
2 in
right.
those
Forgot
games.
about that. Russ broke his finger.
68% completion, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick. Dang, he was decent though. All right.
He was decent.
All right.
Anyway,
Moving on.
shout out Geno. So our most improved player, technically Trevor Lawrence and Geno. Probably Geno in this case. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt, I should say.
100% we will.
Before we move to MVP, our last category is most improved team as a whole.
Yes.
I will start this one off. I have the Jaguars as my most improved team as a whole. They went from being the worst team in football last year and chaotic year to making the playoffs and winning the division over Tennessee, who was the number 1 seed last year. So I'm taking the Jaguars in this case. What do we have? We'll start with Benny.
I have the Jags too. I don't think there's really anyone close unless you wanted to put Seattle in this spot. But I didn't because I already given love somewhere else. Jacksonville went out this offseason and spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
And whole lot of money they spent. Was it on a bunch of good players? Not people didn't think that, but ended up working out really well. Kind of similar to what New England did the previous year, able to make the playoffs after spending so much in free agency. Big leap from Trevor Lawrence. They're able to get first-year coach Doug Peterson. That sounds weird. Into the playoffs. So really good. Kind of 2 tales of the season for Jacksonville. First third of the season, last third of the season, they were phenomenal. Middle third, they were really bad. So hopefully that thirds of the season works in Jacksonville's favor. Hopefully they're able to win a playoff game. Let's see if any of us predicted them to win against the Chargers. Go check out the other episode.
Mike?
Yeah. It's Jags. I was just looking if they have or what their cap space is this offseason. Thinking, oh, maybe this would be a good talking point if they have a lot of cap. Currently they're negative $8 million. So
Yeah, they spent a lot.
It paid off though for them.
It did.
So there we go, right?
Just got to hope that their draft class continues to shine in the next couple of years. But yeah, our
Tyson Campbell has been great.
Tyson Campbell, Rashawn Jenkins, Josh Allen, Travon Walker has been pretty solid in the last few
Trayvon
weeks.
Walker has been solid, yeah.
But Tyson Campbell is like putting up stupid numbers, like for absolutely no reason at all.
It's for good reason, dog. He's corner 1. Him and
Rashawn Jenkins have been very good.
Well, Rayshon safety, so
That's true. Anyway, we wrap up every single category in our award show. To recap briefly before our most valuable player, Opoy, Justin Jefferson,
recapping
Depoy,
already?
Nick Bosa.
Why?
Offensive rookie, Garrett Wilson. Defensive rookie, Sauce
They
Gardner.
watched the episode.
You never know. Comeback
Alright.
player, McCaffrey. Coach of the year, Sirianni. I'm just doing this to piss Ben off at this point. Most surprising team, Seattle. Disappointing. Denver and LA. Most improved, T-Law and Gino. Most improved team, the Jags. Ben looks like he's getting ready to fall asleep. Anyway, we return back to normalcy.
I don't think
Our
anything's
most-
normal with you, bro.
Our most valuable player. Here it is.
How about this? Since we all have the same first place winner, let's go around and say who we think finishes second. Brett, you start.
Joe Burrow's my second.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, that was the only person that I thought be different, so we can say our winners. I had Patrick Mahomes.
Hurtful. So hurtful.
Hurtful? Okay.
Hurtsful.
Very hurtsful. You know what? We should just name our podcast this. Jalen Hurtsful.
I don't think we should.
That'd be garbage.
Fine. Patrick Mahomes for me too. All having Patrick Mahomes, please raise your hand and say aye.
Yo. That's I in Spanish.
All right,
That's
so we
true.
all have Patty Mahomes for all of the right reasons.
I have a different two, but
Who's your
Who's
two?
your two?
oh, Jalen Hurts.
See, I would have had Hurts as my two, but he didn't play the last two games where it really meant a lot to Philadelphia. So
I mean, Joe Burrow missed a game too. You saw that week 1 performance.
yeah, that's bad. He came back incredibly strong.
Bro, what? Also, by the way, like Joe Burrow's clearly better than Jalen Hurts, but okay.
All right. So with that, it wraps up episode 19 of the 3 and Out podcast. If you like what you saw, be sure to give us a follow, like, subscribe to all of our pages. Be sure to stay tuned in for our next episode where we recap Super Wildcard Weekend and preview the NFL divisional rounds for the playoffs. Signing off for now. As always, Ben Pope, Mike Cicchetti. My name is Brett Schaubs. Take care. Big Ben doesn't suck. I can't say it.